when you see what you have found outside the class, you can compare and you say for sure what they taught us is wrong.
Mm.
Hmm? Or you can say you can tell other people who are studying, you study, but after you'll meet this and this. And that's why there is internship, what?
Yeah. Industrial
Mm.
training,
So you can uh-huh.
so that you can be able to to compare what you've been studying in class and then what is in practice.
Mm-hmm. The theory and practice, practice and theory.
Uh, I can't hear you well anymore.
It is practice. It is now theory you bring it to practice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Then you compare both, then you come out with the exact thing, the right thing you should do.
Yes.
Mm.
Okay. I think we should proceed to the next page, right?
Uh-huh. That is the rules of discipline.
Yes, rules of discipline. Can you speak louder? Your volume is going out right now. I can't hear you anymore. I've been hearing you very well.
Rules of discipline.
Yes, yes, yes. I can hear you now.
Number one, obey orders in all your actions. This one you have to obey all orders. Then number two, do not take a single needle or piece of thread from the masses. Rule number three, turn in everything captured. Number four, speak politely.
Turning
Number
everything.
five,
So what does it mean by turning everything captured?
turn in everything captured. You know there are some who go to loot.
Okay.
Not so. There are
Turn
some who
it
go to loot.
like turn it into who?
Turn in everything captured. Of course to the commanders.
Ah, okay, okay, okay.
Mhm.
So that you will not
Then
become
speak
corrupt.
politely.
If people don't turn it in, they will become corrupt.
Uh-huh. Speak politely. Pay fairly for what you buy.
Mm.
Return everything you borrow.
Mm-hmm.
Pay for any damage. Do not hit or swear at the people. You know, like this NRA war,
Mm.
you when they would when they getting cows, like for example, they write in the book, we have borrowed these cows, but you don't show that you have taken them by force.
Mm.
Then after this and this time, we shall pay you after the war.
Ah, okay. And is that what the people in Wales were saying that they want to be compensated?
Because of those books, what they told them,
Mm.
because it is a people's protracted war, not just you alone.
Okay.
Then return everything you borrow, pay for anything you damage. This one is to create a relationship between people and the what and the guerrillas.
Mm.
Do not hit or swear at the people so that you keep a good relationship. Do not damage crops. Do not take liberties with women. Do
Raping.
not ill treat mhm, even prostitution. What?
Even
Do not ill
prostitution.
treat taking liberties, being with women. You have gone for other things and you go for women.
I thought it means raping, but if you have a relationship with them,
Yeah,
is that also not allowed?
sometimes it's not allowed.
Okay. In the
Like in
military.
the no, like in the NRI camp of when they're in the bush,
Mm.
the only five women were allowed in the camp, because when you go out and you meet other women, they will take Lugambo.
Ah, yeah, 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 yeah.
They will take information. We met men. They were like, here, what?
Mm.
So they keep all the women maybe like of commanders. Then for you, because they cannot manage to keep everyone's wife.
Yes.
The sources are people. Do not ill-treat captives, because when you treat them well, they will go and tell the others to surrender, that you are good people. Not so.
Yes. Yes.
Keep eyes and ears open.
Mm.
And this
Come
one,
closer to the microphone. Come closer to the mic.
this one, keep your eyes and ears open.
Yes.
This one is
Alert.
like intelligence.
Stay
Yeah,
alert.
be alert. Not the enemy within.
Mm.
That is, there is the enemy within and the enemy outside. Not so.
Yes.
Then always guide and protect children.
Mm. Oh,
Always be the servant of the people. 15.
okay.
Mm.
Actually, these guys they took some of these points because the Black Panther Party they used to talk to Kwame Ture. They took this book and they picked it out some points and they were using it actually when they were carrying out their struggle.
Mm.
The Black Panther Party, if you check what they were doing, they were using some of
Yeah.
these points,
Mm.
and
Even
they were
almost all.
and they were reading from Nkrumah's book, this handbook of revolutionary warfare.
Mm.
Mm.
But the American struggle is too segmented.
In the United States,
Mm.
and it's very
Even
difficult
that,
because you are inside where the enemy's home himself, so he's very vicious in there.
just like South Africa.
Yeah.
Mm. But I see all of these things were used also in the NRA war.
Mm.
The principles remain the same.
Yes, yes, that one I agree.
Even when you read those books, you have read those books of NRA, how we saw it, and then Argon of Power, then there is Maneuvers of. There is a book by Mohoz, it is called Maneuvers of
Mohoz,
the Battle Maneuvers of the Resistance Movement.
you mean Mohoz, Museveni's son, right?
Uh,
I have to read it. I don't have a copy. I
it
have
is
to
a
get a
very
copy.
good one.
Okay.
He analyzes the whole world and he divides it.
But Museveni himself has he written about this war?
Here's the mustard seed,
Okay.
second edition.
The
He
second
writes
edition.
about it. It is out. But
No
the
man,
best book it is.
no man, I can't hear you very well. I don't know why the phone is the sound.
Yes, I said Museveni's book is called the Mustard Seed, second edition,
Yes, yes.
sowing the mustard seed.
Okay,
But the best book on that way it is how we saw it,
okay,
how I saw it, Pecos Tesa,
okay,
then the combatants in the Ruero. We can continue.
okay. So how I saw it was written by.
Pecos Tesa, he died.
Okay. So
Then you read it with the other one.
you have read all these ones.
Yes, all of them I've read.
Wow, you must be rich in
I
there.
most I read those memoirs.
Mm.
Even in Europe, I've read some of them. especially in Eastern, the ones of the German army. I've read
Mm.
them, even some in Africa.
Okay.
Mm. Right now, I have the one of Van Manstein, Lost Victories, soft copy.
Okay.
Uh, can we proceed?
Yes, we can proceed.
We shall skip the contents.
Okay. World strategy
We
of
start with
imperialism, objectives.
uh, we go to book one, not the enemy, not so.
Okay. It has only two chapters, right?
Yeah.
The world strategy of imperialism and the objective of the African Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
The guerrilla is the masses in arms.
Did you see the theme of Uganda's independence? Last one, it was about imperial neocolonialism.
The one which was it in Kitugum? Where was it or this side of
Yeah, in the north, Agagwa, I think.
was it in Kitugum or Kotido or something?
Agagwa. There, Kitgum. Kitgum, yeah, Kitgum.
Okay. But from the analysis, how do you see what Museveni is doing when it comes to imperialism? Is he really doing anything that is going to stop imperialism, or is it just hoodwinking people to stay in power?
Imperialism, it is, first of all, capitalism, it is a world economic model also.
Yes.
You cannot start saying you are chasing it away capitalism at once. It will crush you, not so. So most of like what Kwame Nkrumah talked about, he wanted Africa to unite at once, not so. And then then in the OAU they are formed the two things, the Casablanca and the what? These two groups, not so,
Yes.
with conflicting interests.
Mm.
So most of the people have viewed it that economic integration will speed up the what? Will speed up the rate of uh, African unity. Most of them have viewed it in that way. But it is coming because I see now East Africa. East Africa has grown by the way. Not
Yeah,
so.
I saw that they are trying to admit Somalia in there. So you think that that could
It,
be the strategy Seven is playing to try to make a
it is
contribution? Because in the past, he has been against the unification of Africa, against Gaddafi. And
yeah.
yet Gaddafi
The
was
past,
trying to move in the direction which Nkrumah was moving, that we unify, let's make it one military. Like if you look at the SARTE, during the SARTE declaration, he was trying to convince them that they
yeah.
should form a single military.
Now there is a problem between these Pan-Africanists. Pan-Africanists, some Pan-Africans see Arabs as also what? Uh, as imperialists because they view that this is not their original homeland. They see them as invaders, so that is the problem. They cannot trust them. And even Arabs see, because most of the countries in the north are not part of the African Union. They have refused and have remained part of the what? They subscribe to the Arab League. Not so.
Yes, but if you look at the 60s, actually most of them, they were part of the radical Pan-Africans. If you look at, for example, the Casablanca group, which Nkrumah was part of, Mali and all the others, Egypt was part, Algeria was part. If you're talking about North Africa, who is there that you can talk of that is really powerful? Algeria. Algeria, in most of the cases, has been with Africa, majority of the times. Algeria doesn't really
Morocco,
push it does not push itself so much into the Arab things, even though it is part of them, but it has been very much inclined to voting with the Africans on African issues. So during that period of the 60s, actually, the Casablanca is in Morocco. That is where the Casablanca group of
Yeah,
Nkrumah used to meet. So this Arab thing, I know that it is an issue as of today, but I think that this accusation against Gaddafi was just used by the imperialists strategically to accuse him as someone who wants to be president and then to create suspicion. The other African leaders like Museveni was scared, and even it was the same thing even in the 60s. They threw around that suspicion that Nkrumah wants to dominate everyone, wants to be president, and that is the accusation which was used in the 60s, that Nkrumah wants to be president
in
of
this,
Africa. So everyone became suspicious of Nkrumah, and Nkrumah was isolated. So me, I
but
think that it
the
is an
60s,
imperialist strategy.
mm,
We have that problem of the
mm,
suspicion of the Arabs, but I think that imperialist strategy is also uh, using that to block the issue of unifying Africa itself.
and the 60s it is a well-known revolutionary period in the whole world, not so?
Yes,
In the 60s is when all revolutions spring up to bring in independence, and the Arab League was also disgruntled by the what? In fact, it was made its hopes declined with the appearance of Israel and this Yom Kippur, the sixth day. You remember it?
yes, against Israel.
They all remained defenseless.
Yes.
Then Egypt had to call in the USSR, and the USSR is a very, yes, it was strong, but it was far away.
Mm,
So it had to go back to an African what to form allies with Africa, with
yeah.
the also other black nations. So they remained attached this side because us we act as a what buffer zone, sub-Saharan Africa and West Africa.
But
So it's the
generally,
attachment.
yes, that's true. But generally, Nkrumah had very good relations with people like Ben Bella of Algeria. They were very good, and Ben Bella himself was really very strong. And Nasser, Nkrumah had a very strong relationship with Nasser. Even that is how he was able to marry his wife. His wife was from Egypt. Nkrumah's wife was an Arabic woman, but she was a Christian, a Coptic, what they call it, Coptic, what these people.
But
These Christians in Russia, how do they call them?
those Orthodox,
Those Orthodox Christian, I think something like that, some sort of like that. So she was from there. So Nkrumah had a good relationship with Nasser during that period. Of course, I'm not discounting what you were saying. It makes a lot of sense. But anyway, that is a problem. I think we also have to find a way of dealing with when it comes to
but
the struggle.
mm,
We have to find a way
but
of
do you know Gamal Abdel Nasser was a very bright man.
yes,
You look at even this man who was fighting in Algeria, Franz Fanon,
yes. You remember that
very
even the Black
bright and
Panthers,
intelligent.
even Black Panthers, they
Mm,
most of them when they had problems in the United States, like Clover, there's one guy who was called Eldridge Clover. The FBI was hunting for
mm.
him. He ran and they were staying in Algeria. That's where they used to stay.
Now, when you look at the Franz Fanons, they don't look at this black, white, what they look at imperialism only.
Yes.
hmm Then when even in South Africa, still there are people who say that for them they are not Africans.
Mm.
So it is these radical Pan-Africanists. They also have their own views, which make them so attached to Africa that they don't want other people to come in. So even the views of African unity, there are very many people because last time I saw there is this general Tinyefuza, you know him.
Yeah, I know Tinyafun.
I was saying that he wants it to be a like he would like it to be like a federated nation.
That was the
Hmm?
position of Chika Anta Diop also, was saying that we should create a federation.
A federation.
Mm.
Then there are these ones. Then there are these ones who want the economic blocks to be formed. Then after they unite the economic blocks and they form one what? One nation.
I think that is a failure
But the,
position. That one it can't
but
work.
then it comes with a serious challenge of administration. That is where the problem comes in. Then free movement of people.
Those ones, I think they are a waste of time. They are just wasting time and delaying what is supposed to be.
Mm. All of them have their views, but to reach there, it is now what is to be done. But now the good thing, now it is Pan Africanism, which is now up in the all NRI circles, NRIM circles.
But Pan Africanism, I don't know which is Pan Africanism they are reading the NRA, because I'm always hearing seven Pan Africanism, but I don't know which one they are reading. I really think that if you're talking about Pan Africanism and you don't believe in what Nkrumah was saying, I doubt the type of Pan Africanism which is being planted there. And Museveni does not believe in Nkrumah's Pan Africanism. I
Then
heard him. I heard him. He
he
was
takes on
speaking.
whose outlook.
I
Hmm?
was hearing him. He was speaking to the Kenyan. I think they were what immigration and what and police or something. There's some Kenyan security
Mm.
people who came to. They came to Kampala to speak, and then one guy was asking him that Nkrumah was calling for a unified Africa. Museveni said that Nkrumah was an idealist.
Mm.
I don't know what he said, and I was like, I don't know which kind of Pan Africanism Seven is talking about. He's talking about the economic Pan Africanism. But what I see in Seven is that if is really into Pan Africanism, then he's practicing Nyerere's Pan Africanism because he's an ardent follower of Nyerere, President Julius Nyerere. He believes in Nyerere a lot.
Eh,
Now,
that's very true.
but the Nyerere President Museveni believes in is the old Nyerere. Because Nyerere said later that after Nkrumah had died, that he took about 10 years to study Nkrumah's work before he would understand what Nkrumah was talking about 10 years before he died. So after
Mm.
Nkrumah died, that is when he understood 10 years later after reading Nkrumah's work. That's when he understood what Nkrumah was saying and said, hey, so this is what the man was saying, why he was saying we should unify quickly. So in 1997, he came to Accra and he agreed that we should have unified the continent, like what Nkrumah was saying. So that type of Nyerere, I think Museveni is not aware of him. Museveni has not attained that level. Nyerere who had already exceeded that level where Museveni is. That is my thinking. That's why Museveni is still stuck in that thing.
You see, the what Africa, they say what Africa lost before 1963.
Mm.
And just in 1963, it will never achieve it.
It's
Because
difficult.
it was the time when they would all come together.
Yes.
But that time it was lost. And when Nkrumah left the seat,
There was no
now
one.
everyone was just,
There was no one to fill the
mm,
space. All of them, they were.
there was no one. Yes, Gaddafi had the money, but the brains were not good.
Strategically, also he
That's it.
tried. He was trying strategically also, but it was difficult. Imperialism is too much at work. It's too much at work.
And even he was also putting religion.
Mm. He had some fundamentalism, some Islamic fundamentalism in there.
Mm.
So it created some sort of suspicion.
Because you cannot come and you tell me you have come on issues to do with Africa and you're telling people to ban the Bible or leave to convert to Islam, not so.
Mm. I think
And that you,
Nkrumah
mhm.
warned about that thing, that approach of religious fundamentalism, of antagonizing religions before you unify the continent. In his book, Concessions,
Mm,
he spoke about it.
mm.
He wrote about it and tried to explain how Pan-Africans should be able to deal with that problem.
And yet Pan Africanists they also view Islam as also what alien, not so.
Hmm?
Pan Africanists also view Islam as an alien religion, not so.
Even some of them they view Islam as an alien religion.
So now, what would you say that you have come to preach when you are converting me to Islam?
Yeah, so that was the
Hmm?
problem. He should not have antagonized that area of religion.
Mm.
He should have studied the place very well to know each place where he was going, who are the majority there. I think he did not, that one he missed the point.
Maybe he builds a big museum for Africa. What? In fact, Haile Selassie was sharp because for him he gave them land.
Mm.
The land for that construction of OAU. It
Yeah,
is in Addis Ababa, not so.
yes.
Everyone, when you ask Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, headquarters of UN, where? USA, Washington. Is it New York? Yeah, New York.
Mm.
So, and now when you ask, yes, Gaddafi had the money, he left what for Africa? He left the green book, which you can also get like Mao's red book, little red book, not so.
Mm.
What did he leave?
He
He left
converted.
mosques. That one I know he has mosques. But
And
for
he had done a lot of
Pan-Africanism,
investment, only that they have taken it back. All Libya, like for example, Uganda, National Housing, Uganda Telecom, all of those was full of Gaddafi's money. And a lot of these other countries, he had invested a lot of money, only maybe he did not build the big projects.
mm,
Mm.
yes, he had the money.
But he was trying to,
When you
he had gathered, he had about 140, 145 tons of gold, which he wanted to use to start a African currency.
have you seen Sankara?
Yes,
He had no money, in fact, not so.
yes,
But his impact was felt up to now. It is even felt all over Africa.
yes, yes.
How do you see Sankara and the Gaddafi?
I think even Magufuli, if you look at Magufuli, Sankara and his performance, both of them and Magufuli, I think is the same. Sankara has a big effect because he was there for a very short time. And then he
Mm,
did a lot of stuff. Even the guys who are there right now to award it, uh, he's trying to
mm,
follow. He's trying to follow inside Sankara's shoes. So I think Sankara he did a lot. In fact, in the sense that he showed the people that it is possible. It is
mm-hmm.
possible to do things. And I think that that is the example also which Magufuli left, that it is possible for Africa to develop its own resources. And that is why also Magufuli, I believe they removed him, because he was setting that example. But all these, I think they help us in our revolution, because these are the lessons when we are talking about economic policy. What type of economic policy are we going to, should we implement, or how should we use our resources? I think all these guys, they help us, that they show us that this is what should be done, even though they are removed, but they show us that this is what is possible and this is what you can do if you get to power.
People need hope.
Mm-hmm.
That's the truth. Hope is better than anything.
Yeah.
and it is not sold anywhere.
Mm. I agree.
Mm.
Let's go
So
to book one.
that is book one,
Yes.
not the enemy.
No, at the enemy.
The
Should I
new
read?
phase, that is the preface.
Yes.
The new phase of the armed revolutionary struggle in Africa embraces the entire continent.
Mm.
It is essential that we know what we fight, why we fight. Imperialism and neocolonialism must be broken down into their component parts so that we can clearly see them. We must know their world strategy. In this book, I have attempted to show the nature and extent of imperialist and neo-colonialist aggression and our objectives in the struggle for freedom and political unification of Africa. Mm.
Mm.
So in this one there comes imperialism and neo-colonialism.
Yes.
So they have been broken down. So chapter one, the world strategy of imperialism, know the enemy. A number of external factors affect the African situation, and if our liberation struggle is to be placed in correct perspective and we are to know the enemy, the impact of these factors must be fully grasped. First among them is imperialism, for it is mainly against exploitation and poverty that our peoples revolt. It is therefore of paramount importance to set out the strategy of imperialism in clear terms. Uh, I think
Yes.
we have had that paragraph.
Yes. Yes.
So there is a problem when people come and they don't understand those uh, like capitalism, imperialism, uh, neocolonialism also.
Yes, maybe what we should expand on, of course, in the preface, he introduced what he's trying to cover in the book, which is the understanding of the enemy, which is imperialism and neocolonialism.
Mm,
And of course, the objective is for us to have, a way in which we can struggle against this imperialist aggression, which he said that in this book I've attempted to show the nature and extent of imperialist aggression and our objective in this struggle, in the struggle for the freedom and the political unification of Africa. So the objective is majorly the freedom and political unification of Africa. That's the major, that's the
yes,
two
that is
major objectives of the book,
the
right?
primary goal.
Yes, the
Yes.
primary goal of the struggle, of the armed struggle.
Mm.
Okay, so maybe we need to expand on the understanding of imperialism and neocolonialism because these two words sometimes they confuse a lot of people.
Then to set out the strategy of imperialism, it is therefore of paramount importance to set out the strategy of imperialism in clear terms. The means one, it is the means used by the enemy to ensure continued economic exploitation of our territories. That is imperialism. Then two, of the attempts the nature of the attempts made to destroy the liberation movement.
Ah,
Once
in
the
neocolonialism, is it not the means which is used by the enemy to ensure the continued exploitation of our resources?
yeah,
Is that not the neocolonialism?
those are the means.
The neocolonialism is the means, but the system is imperialism, right?
Yes, imperialism.
Because at first we had slavery. Slavery was the means, and then we had colonialism. Colonialism was the means, but the system was still the same. It was imperialism still.
It was imperialism. It is domination by the superior countries
Okay.
on the what? On the inferior ones
Okay.
or the weaker ones. But this one, when colonialism was direct, you could say white man telling you grow coffee, grow what. So
Yes.
after leaving, it became neocolonialism. It
Mm.
was an arm. That's why they said. By the question of neocolonialism is when they say that is Africa independent or it's not independent? Eh?
Yes. Yes. That question rises a lot.
There are still attachments which not everyone can see, which are
Mm-hmm.
not direct.
Yes.
That is neocolonialism.
Yes. Very
So
clear.
once the components of the enemy's strategy are determined, we will be in position to outline the correct strategy for our own struggle in terms of our casual situation in accordance with our objectives. Before the Second World War, the world excluding the USSR the USSR and China were divided into the capitalist practicing orthodox imperialism under the generally known form of imperialism. That is
Yes.
capitalist states practicing orthodox imperialism under the
The
generally
generally
known
known form
form
of
of.
imperialism. Yeah.
Then B. Colonial territories which fed economies of the capitalist imperialist states in brackets the Latin American territories had largely passed from the status of Spanish and Portuguese colonies to that of neocolonies. Mm.
Yes.
What the meaning here? Before the Second World War,
Yes.
this like now China most of and the USSR because of these revolutions.
Mm.
That is the Second World War began later on, but the First World War that is 1914 also
Yes.
to 1918. That is then the Russian Revolution that is 1917.
Yes.
It removed the Tsars. Then the revolution came in. Then uh, China was still a British colony also. I
Yes.
remember the Mao's coming in 1950s.
Yeah. So I think what is for me, what I understand that he's trying to explain here is that before the Second World War, China's
Mm,
status and the USSR was not clear, but the world was divided into capitalist states
yeah,
and colonial territories. That's what he's saying, that before the Second World War, the world, excluding the USSR and China
and China
and ETs
they
and
never
some.
had colonies.
Yes, so China was not a full colony. You remember that the British wanted to subjugate it completely, by the Chinese to a certain extent, even though they gave out some of the territories like Hong Kong, which they gave to the British, Macau, and
Mm,
Taiwan, and all these, which they gave to the Portuguese and the Germans. They allowed them to come to certain ports, but they never allowed them to go completely inside into China to devastate their culture. So I think this is what Nkrumah
mm,
is driving at. So even though China was disturbed and humiliated to a certain extent with aggression, but it was not fully dominated, and its status as a colony was not very much, it was not very much deep into that status of a colony. So because the Chinese Revolution, I think, started way back around 1912, all the way, when they
around
started
19.
agitating. And so during that period, before the Second World War, 1940s, 1945, and stuff like that, when it finished, the USSR and China and maybe some few countries were not under the boot of, they could not be defined as a colony or a capitalist state. But the rest of the world, all of the world, could be divided into capitalist states, those practicing orthodox, what he called orthodox imperialism, and then the colonial
Okay.
states, which fed the economies of
Mm.
the imperialist states. And so he said that Latin America, American territories had already passed from the status of Spanish and Portuguese colonies to that of neo-colonies because the United States had taken over. Now, for the neo-colonies, it shows that these countries, they were in quote unquote, on book they were independent, but in reality they were not independent because they were being dominated by the United States that had taken over in Latin America and started, exerting its influence over there and its aggression.
And even also, the USSR and China never had colonies abroad.
Yes, yes,
Most of, especially the USSR, never had any colony.
yes,
Then after the world, this world, in fact, before these countries, the others, the British, they had control of the what? Uh, like America, they lost most of the colonies after the World War. Not so.
yes. America did never.
America got independence before
Yes, America.
World War Two.
Yes, yes. He got independence 1776 before World War Two.
Before World War Two.
Yes.
When we see the Spanish colonies like Haiti, it also they also fought because I remember uh, Haiti there is that black man is called who?
Two Slovakia.
Uh,
Yeah, two Slovakia, and then there was the Salines. They fought from 1791 up to 1804, about 13 years.
that man was also imprisoned.
Yes,
He led the sugarcane
they were slaves.
those sugarcane workers revolution in Haiti,
Yes, yes,
and he played the Spaniards so I think these guys also were also releasing themselves. So they left that thing of being Spanish colonies,
yes,
and then they became neo colonies
yes.
administered by themselves, but like we are British colonies, not so.
No, I think
But
what I think is that he was meaning majorly because when you look at Nkrumah's book, Neocolonialism, the last stage of imperialism, he said that foremost amongst the neocolonialists is the United States. When you read the mechanism of neocolonialism, I don't want to say that
mm,
the when the Africans in Haiti took over, they themselves became neocolonialists. Because if the country is in the hands of the indigenous people or the owners, I don't think it is a neo-colony if it is not being exerted, if there's no influence that is being exerted from outside. But to a certain extent, if you look at, for example, 1914, the United States went in and invaded Haiti. You see, these countries,
mm,
immediately when Haiti got its independence, it did not even enjoy it. They immediately started exerting pressure on Haiti. Like France immediately started saying that they should pay for the land because the land belongs to
mm,
France. And that money they paid it until 2000, I think 2011, which is to
mm,
the tune of around $20 billion. The United States started invading, and Haiti was not allowed to trade with anyone.
mm,
So they were blocking it because it had fought against this slavery. And they saw that this was a bad sign that Africans were perpetually supposed to be enslaved. So the liberation in Haiti was sending a bad message to the rest of the slaves, the African slaves across
mm.
the globe. So they immediately started imposing difficult situations. Haiti could not sell its sugar on the international market because they controlled the market. They could not sell anything on the international market. It was embargo. They had, like how we were seeing Cuba, what they are doing to Cuba now for the last 50 years. Even for Cuba is at least better because Cuba has other countries it can at least try to trade with or talk to. But Haiti was almost completely alone in a world which was dominated by imperialism. Now, for it, the moment it entered independence in 1804, it immediately was ushered into
Mm.
this neocolonialism.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Because at first in A they say capitalist states, then in B they say colonial territories which fed the economies of the capitalist
Imperialist system.
imperialist states. So
Yes.
the first one, A, was the one which was dominating B,
Yes. Yes.
not so?
Yes. Absolutely.
Those are the two parts. A
Yes.
was ruling B. Then, however, after the Second World War, as serious economic, social, and political tensions arose in both spheres.
Yes.
A. Inside the capitalist imperialist states, workers' organization had become comparatively strong and experienced, and the claims of the working class for a more substantial share of the wealth produced by the capitalist economy could no longer be ignored. The
Mm.
necessity to concede had become all the more imperative since the European capitalist system had been seriously shaken up by the near Holocaust, which marked the experience of imperialist wars. Hmm?
Yes.
Let me repeat it. Inside, inside the capitalist imperialist states, workers' organizations had become comparatively strong and experienced, and the claims of the working class for a more substantial share of the wealth produced by the capitalist economy could no longer be ignored. The necessity to concede had become all the more imperative since European capitalist system had been seriously shaken up by the near Holocaust, which marked the experience of imperialist wars.
Yes.
B. While the capitalist system of exploitation was coming to grips with internal crises, the world's colonized areas were austere with upsurge of strong liberation movements. Here again, demands were no longer be cast aside or ignored, especially when they were channeled through irresistible mass movements like the uh, Reassemblement Democratique Africain RDA, Parti Démocratique de Guinée PDG, and Convention People's Party CPP in Ghana. In certain areas, for example in Vietnam, Kenya, and Algeria, direct confrontation demonstrated the readiness of the oppressed peoples to implement their claims
With the
with
blood
blood
and
and
fire.
fire.
Yes. I
Mhm.
think this is very clear.
So this one is very clear. In the capitalist countries, we see trade unions coming up, not so?
Yes.
Workers demanding equal for equal pay of their labor. In
Yes.
fact, better wages, salaries, what?
Mm.
Then B, we see in these colonies what was happening. Countries were demanding for what? Independence.
Yes.
Not so?
Yes. And
Uh-huh.
they all these two groups, their uh, in demands could not be ignored because what he said is that these two groups which constituted the world, because remember in the beginning he said there was the dominated states, the exploited states, and they were exploiting states, the imperialist states, which are the capitalists. So within these groups, you developed certain tensions, economic and political tensions within the two groups, within the capitalist states themselves, and then within the colonial states, which were being dominated. And of course, in the capitalists, you had the workers who were demanding a bigger share of the wealth they were creating for these capitalists. If you go back in those days, actually, I was reading a book, I was researching on this man. He was called Onassis, Aristotle Onassis, who was one of the richest people during that period, which led to the Second World War.
mm,
Onassis was, I think, was one of the richest, if not the richest person during that period. Actually, he would later marry President Kennedy's wife when President Kennedy died. But you could see that there was a lot of wealth, and these guys used to put people to work, and they would buy yachts, just like how today they are buying private jets, at the expense of the poor people who are working in factories and working in these so-called sweatshops, maybe in China and etc. While people like Steve Jobs and Tim Cook are flying around on private jets. People like Elon Musk, flying on private jets. Some of them they have 4, 3 private jets. While the people who are producing this wealth, they are, in despicable. The way they are sleeping is despicable. The feeding is despicable. So it's almost akin to slavery. So the people within these capitalist states, they saw this wealth and they say, no, we also have to demand a share of this wealth. We have to demand a more substantial share of the wealth that is being produced by these rich guys, the wealth which we are producing, which these economies are producing. And so this could not be ignored anymore. And as that was going on within the capitalist states, then they started to rise political tension within the colonies themselves that the people were resisting against the colonialism. And so that is why he mentioned the organizations and mass movements like Resemble, the Democratic African, and then the Party Democratique de Guinea, PDG, which was from the Guinea, and then the CPP from Ghana and other parts of Kenya and Vietnam and Algeria, where other parts where if non-violent means we are not able to achieve the objectives or the demands were not met, then people took up arms and it became rough that they had to take things
mm.
by fire and blood.
Then we say both in the colonial territories and in the metropolitan states,
Yes,
the struggle was being waged against the same enemy,
yes,
international finance capital, under its external and internal forms of exploitation, imperialism, and capitalism.
capitalism.
Okay, let me talk something.
Okay.
Before when colonialists were coming to Africa or
Yes,
to other colonies like Indochina, they were united.
yes,
Like they used to call all of us savages, what?
yes,
Not so.
yes,
So they all united as one man.
yes.
When the resources reached there, they needed also workers.
Mm,
Then the workers were also part of them. But now these people who control the machines and those factors of production, they started also using their own their own whites, let me say whites who came to seek employment.
yes.
So they ended up becoming workers. So the workers also needed their equal share. So now after that thing transforming, after of course white blacks also trying to revolt.
Mm,
Now the whites, now the working class movements of Europe and Africa all realized, and also the people in Africa who were fighting also, they all realized that there is one what oppressive system, which is capitalism,
mm,
because it eats from The whites the other side, and it also it's from us. So it is a working class, world working class movement.
Yes.
That's why in the preface, I think we made, or in the other side, we made something where Nkrumah speaks about the African nation in the world. Is it? Hmm?
Where was that?
Sorry, but uh, sorry, but I think we shall meet it. But in the end, even here, they say that here in this paragraph which I wrote,
In the
they
preface.
say that both in the let us go back to this place where we are.
Okay.
Both in the colonial territories and in the metropolitan states, the metropolitan that is back to Europe also.
Yes, yes. Metropolitan
The
states.
struggle was being waged against the same enemy.
Mm.
So the Africans and the Europeans all realize that they have the what?
The
The
same.
same enemy, the international finance capital, under its external and internal forms of exploitation,
Yes.
imperialism and capital.
Capitalism. So this imperialist
Imperialism,
aggression, which was manifesting through colonialism, was was just a system that was, you know, just manifesting. It was just imperialism which was manifesting through this colonialism and then capitalism in the metropolis during those periods.
but it was favoring a certain group of people,
Yes,
not all whites.
yes, yes, definitely.
Uh-huh,
In the metropolis, it
uh-huh,
was manifesting as capitalism, and then
mm-hmm,
in the colonies, it was pure colonialism. There was no even their business. These places were for extraction. So they were exploiting their own workers, their own white people
uh-huh,
in the various in their European countries, and then becoming very rich. Like they have yachts and they have these all these riches. But for the black
because yeah, they
most
were.
of them,
Uh,
for us, in
I
the
was.
colonies, we were completely
Mm,
savages and we were nothing. There was nothing to be left there
mm,
almost.
mm.
Mm.
Because yeah, they take the, raw materials, so they were very harsh. Then when it reaches there, it is worked on by the working class
Yes.
of the British. So they continue after that diagram, after chart one. They say threatened with disintegration by the double-fisted attack of the working class movement. And that is the working class. It is a double-fisted attack, on the working class movement. That is of Europe, and the liberation movement. That is in the what? In Africa and other countries. Capitalism had to launch a series of reforms in order to build a protective armor around the inner workings of its systems to
Mm.
avoid internal breakdown of the system under pressure of the workers' protest movement. The governments of capitalist countries granted their workers certain concessions which did not endanger the basic nature of the capitalist system of exploitation. They gave them social security,
Hmm.
higher wages, better working conditions, professional training facilities, and improvements.
Other improvements.
These improvements in the workplaces,
Yes.
but they did not endanger the nature of the what capitalist system of exploitation. They did not change it. They just brought in improvements to
So they,
keep
in other
these
words, they
people's
just
eyes
gave
what closed.
concessions. They just gave concessions
Mm,
in a way that
mm.
they would not be able to destroy their own system. The system would remain functional.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
These reforms helped to blur, fundamental contradictions and to remove some of the more glaring injustices while at the same time ensuring the continued exploitation of the workers. The myth was established of an affluent capitalist society promising abundance and a better life for all. The basic aim, however, was the establishment of a welfare state as the only safeguard against the threat of fascism or communism. This one they just helped the what? The workers to give them better things so that the workers think that they care about them
Mm.
and the citizens because they were fearing the threat of fascism or communism. Hmm?
The myth was established of an affluent capitalist society promising abundance and a better life for all. The basic aim, however, was the establishment of a welfare state as the only safeguard against the threat of fascism or communism. Is that okay? Fascism is an alternative, like what we see with Mussolini. Fascism is a failure of
Mussolini and
capitalism,
Hitler.
right?
Mussolini and Hitler, those are fascists.
Okay. So is that the failure? Is that the failure of capitalism? Then it degrades into fascism because of
Yeah,
the
when fascism becomes, yeah, uh, when capitalism is rotting, they say fascism is capitalism in decay. That is how Lenin calls it. So,
okay.
like Hitler, what made Hitler to fight to start looting other countries? He felt that Germany had been cheated and it had to get everything paid back. You get it?
Mm,
So the workers of Germany thought that they had been cheated and had to make others pay for their suffering.
okay.
So now, so now the capitalist system says that there is a better life for all, but under what? Perfect competition. Like now you can tell a white man, I am broke. He will tell you, have you failed to start up a business? Hmm?
Mm.
Because for them they believe in a capitalist what system, they know.
So
You have
is
to
that
start
what he
up a
means by
business.
this? Is this the myth? Is this the myth which he means? The myth was established of an affluent society promising abundance and better life for all. So that is what it
When
means when they say that if you work hard, you will become rich, right?
uh-huh.
And
If you are lazy, you will never.
these days actually they have been saying that now you have to work smart because they used to say that the Africans are lazy. That's why they are not rich. They
Mm,
don't work hard. Now, when we work hard, now they are saying that you have to work smart. It's no more about working hard.
uh-huh,
It's about working smart. I think they
uh-huh.
keep shifting the post. They keep shifting the goal post.
Ah, that use a lot of energy to do nothing. So
Ah,
they keep on bringing. Then communism, of course, the people will start fighting that they want equal rights, they want to
mm,
those things. So
mm,
it will be a very big threat to that type of business because you have to share profits, what, and then you will say, how can I give profits to a person who is not working?
mm. That's what they normally say.
Na-
That's what they normally say.
mhm. Then in Britain they give you is it an employment allowance for some time you until you get a job.
Mm. But
But
what
they're
for me,
giving you
what I
for
see is that
this.
is a threat here is that what these countries now are receiving, like in France, in the metropolis, you see that people are receiving this welfare from this welfare state. Of course, majority of the countries of Europe, even Norway, but they are receiving all these at the expense of the countries which are being exploited right now. What is going
Auntie,
on with the use of the IMF? These people, their people are receiving at the expense of us here. Because you look at the United States, for example, let us go back to the period of COVID. The United States gave out checks welfare checks during the COVID period. Okay, so but we in the poor countries, whether you're in Ghana, whether you're in South Africa or Uganda, you never received anything, anything. It gave out two checks. I think each of the checks was $1,800 for all houses. That is what I had.
Now you see what Karl Marx said. He said that there is, you see, the working class movement of the world, it
Mm.
is one working class, not so.
Yes.
But he says that the working class movement of Europe feeds on the sweat of the what? Of the working class of Africa. So the working class of Europe is an enemy to the African working class because for you, you work on what? On raw materials and semi-finished goods which require a lot of work. Then
Yes.
they take it there for finishing.
Yes.
But here you get, for them they are fighting for better wages, but in Africa they are not increasing the wages. They are increasing theirs, not so.
Yes.
So the hardships that they go through is not the same hardships that you go what?
We go through.
Through. So for them to be on the same level like the African working class, they have to first they call it transformation. There's some uh, well, they have to criticize themselves.
And I don't think they are willing. Are they willing to do that? If they are getting better
But
benefits, you see how they are living
can
for
you
them
be in
at least.
Europe and you say can you be in Europe and you say that they should reduce my salary because people in Africa are suffering?
No.
They should give them better wages because they do a lot of work. They will ask you, man, are you mad?
So how do
So
we reconcile the two? How are we now going to reconcile the two?
the uh, the people of the African working class uh, should never trust the European working class. It is even written by Marx himself.
Okay.
You read the economic manuscripts, or even uh, Marx's work on the American Civil War. Hmm?
Mm.
Even when Ho Chi Minh was writing about the war of France,
Mm.
he said that in Indochina, when Vietnam was fighting against the French, it is African soldiers who were dying,
Mm.
who they were sending direct. Even in World War II, the
Yes.
British, they were sending
Yes.
them. So should we mean that the African soldiers were getting better services than the what? Than the British?
No, they were even being
Or
killed
do you mean?
actually when they demanded. Like if you look at Senegal, when they came back, the soldiers in Senegal and they demanded for their pay, they killed them. They shot them and killed them.
They were, in
Even
fact, even
in Ghana, also that's what
Ho
happened.
Chi,
That's what led to
Ho Chi Minh wrote about those things.
Mm.
So they say that Africa and South America are companions, they are
Yes.
comrades.
Yes.
Because South America and Africa have almost suffered the same consequences. But you
Yes.
know, Africa has been looted so much, but Africa, you cannot be alone without having what? Partners, not so.
Yes, definitely. Or
And
strategic
you see
partners.
that, but you have to be having a partner who is. That's why you see, like Africa, like Cuba, sent its soldiers to come and fight against what apartheid.
Yes.
Those Quito Valley battles. Then you find Che Guevara also coming in Africa. It is showing the what? Because most
Camaraderie.
people do, the comradeness. Because some people even they ask how comes that Cuba came to Africa also
Yes.
to fight and it sacrificed soldiers. It is because they also look for comrades, but they cannot look for them in Europe.
Yeah, that is true. Which Europe,
Mm-hmm.
which is already exploiting, which is also in the in the business of exploiting.
Uh-huh. Very true.
Ah, okay.
So
I think
we
we
are
can.
looking at the chart.
Yes, I think
Hmm?
we can stop here. We'll start from here next time.
It's okay.
Mm.
Okay, have a good night.
Okay, thank you so much. I have to go. It is 8 over here. I know it is 11 in Uganda.
It is
So,
11.
yes, but I think it is
There
interesting.
it's 8.
It is 8 here.
Okay,
It's 3 hours behind.
it's okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you so much also for
Mm,
the reading and the explanation. Some of the things I needed clarity, and some of them you have helped me to see
it's a
clear.
wonderful book, by the way.
Yes, it is.
We shall meet next Tuesday.
Okay, okay. All right. Thank you so much. You have a good
It's,
night too.
it's okay.
Mm.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.